They always say museums are full of history. What they don't tell you is that sometimes that history watches you back. My name's Adam. I'm 29, and I clean floors for a living. Night shifts. Just me, a mop, and silence stretching from room to room like an invisible fog. I work at the Whitmore Museum, a grand old building downtown, the kind that smells like varnished wood and forgotten stories. During the day, it's alive. Children pointing at dinosaur bones, tourists snapping pictures of ancient swords. But when night falls, it becomes something else entirely. Empty. Quiet. Too quiet. I used to tell myself I liked the peace. No managers breathing down my neck, no questions, no expectations. Just the hum of the lights, the soft squeak of my shoes, and the rhythmic swish of the mop as I made my rounds. I'd plug in my earbuds, let a podcast run in the background, and scrub away the day's footprints. It was routine. It was safe. Until last week, when they opened the Demon exhibit. The name itself was dramatic. The Demon Vault, Relics of Darkness. A new addition, hidden away in the far west wing. They kept it locked during setup, no tours allowed yet, and no one would say what was inside. Just a plaque that read, "Sealed from the world for centuries. Unveiled for the first time." Even before they unveiled it, something about that part of the museum felt wrong. Cold. Like the air got heavier the closer you walked. I started avoiding that hallway altogether, skipping it from my cleaning route. I told myself it was silly, that it was just the dark playing tricks. But the night I heard knocking from behind the vault door, that was the moment things changed. It was 2:44 a.m. I remember the time because I always checked the clock above the Egyptian wing before finishing up. The museum was dead silent, as usual, but then I heard it. Knock. A single hollow knock. Slow and deliberate, like a knuckle tapping on thick wood from the inside. I froze mid-step. The air tightened in my chest. I waited. Nothing. I walked closer, heart thumping in my ears. The Demon Vault door was thick, iron-bound, with strange carvings curling across it like vines. I leaned in, holding my breath. Knock. Again. Louder this time. I stumbled back. Dropped my mop. It clattered against the tiles, breaking the silence like shattered glass. I stood there for what felt like forever, just staring at that door. No movement. No whisper. No explanation. And that was somehow worse than if something had screamed. Finally I laughed. The kind of laugh you force out to keep the fear from sticking. I told myself it was a pipe. Maybe the building settling. Old places make weird sounds, right? Right? I picked up my mop and walked away without cleaning the rest of that hallway. But something followed me home that night. Not a shadow. Not a figure. Just a feeling. Like being watched through a peephole you can't see. And when I closed my eyes to sleep, I dreamt of a door. Black wood. Rusted hinges. A hand reaching for the knob. My hand. And a voice whispering behind it. You heard me. I woke up drenched in sweat. Lights flickering. And outside my window, a crow sat perched on the sill, staring through the glass like it had something to say. That was only the beginning. And I should have quit that very night. But I didn't. Because I had no idea that some exhibits aren't meant to be opened. Not by the curious. Not by the living. And definitely not by someone like me. Someone too stubborn to turn away. The museum was different tonight. It wasn't just the silence, or the way the old heating pipes groaned like they always did around midnight. No, this was something else. A pressure in the air. Like the walls themselves were holding their breath. The new Demon exhibit had opened earlier that day. I wasn't there for the ribbon cutting, of course. I only come in after the guests are long gone. But I saw the posters they hung by the entrance. A strange red symbol stretched across a dark background, something like an eye, or maybe a flame. Below it the words, Ninher, unearthed from the ashes. The name meant nothing to me. Just another creepy exhibit for the public to gawk at. But the janitor's closet sat right below that wing of the museum. And ever since they unlocked that section, something didn't feel right. I pushed my cleaning cart down the long marble hallway, my footsteps echoing back at me. Lights flickered above, though they were brand new bulbs. The air smelled stale. Not dusty. Not musty. Just wrong, like something dead trying to smell alive. The hallway to the Demon exhibit was blocked off by a thick rope and a sign. Closed for night maintenance. That was odd. I didn't place that sign there. I never touched that section. The curators told me not to. They said it required special handling and temperature controls. Still, I walked toward it. Each step felt heavier, like gravity was stronger near that part of the museum. As I reached the velvet rope, I saw the dim red glow leaking out from under the exhibit door. Not normal lighting. It pulsed, almost like it was breathing. That's when I heard it. A low whisper. It wasn't coming from the room. It was coming from the glass cases inside. Soft, like wind curling under a door, but with a voice hidden inside it. I leaned closer, and there it was chanting. Words I didn't understand. Not any language I'd heard. Like someone muttering through clenched teeth, low and fast. The kind of voice you only hear in nightmares, the one that talks while your mouth is sewn shut. I froze. Then I heard footsteps. Behind me. I turned quickly, but the hallway was empty. When I turned back around, the door to the exhibit was cracked open. Just slightly. Just enough. I should have walked away. Instead, I stepped inside. The room was colder than the rest of the museum, like a winter cellar. I could see my breath fogging in front of me. The light was even stranger inside, dim, reddish, and it seemed to bend around certain parts of the room. My shadow didn't move the way it should have. Glass cases lined the walls, each holding pieces of ancient items, bones with symbols carved into them, a rusted crown with thorns made from some blackened metal, a scroll burned at the edges. One case had a stone tablet. It was cracked, but the center held a figure etched into it. A tall, horned creature with a hollow circle where the face should be. Its hands were open, like it was offering something. I couldn't look at it for long. That's when I noticed him. Eric. He was standing near the center of the room, facing away from me, motionless. In one hand, he held something I couldn't see. His other hand was pressed against the glass of the central case, the one with the tablet. Eric? I said, stepping forward. He didn't move. The whispering got louder. My head felt like it was underwater. I gripped the mop handle in my hand, not for cleaning, but for comfort. I wanted to back away, to get out before something touched me. Finally, Eric spoke, still not looking at me. Do you hear it? He asked softly. Hear what? I replied, but my voice cracked. He turned then, just slightly, enough for me to see his face. His eyes were bloodshot, not from crying, but from something deeper. From lack of sleep, or maybe from seeing too much. They never meant for it to be opened, he whispered. What is it? I asked. Eric looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. His mouth twitched like he wanted to say more. But then he glanced over my shoulder. His face drained of color. Leave, he said. Now. I turned to look behind me. Nothing there. When I looked back, Eric was gone. Just gone. No footsteps. No sound. Just not there anymore. The chanting had stopped. Only silence remained. I backed out of the exhibit, heart hammering in my chest, dragging my cart behind me. The moment I stepped over the velvet rope, the temperature returned to normal. The lights stopped flickering. I glanced at the door one last time. It was shut tight again. But I swear, I heard breathing on the other side. Deep, slow, and not human. I've worked the night shift for months now, but last night felt different. The silence had a strange weight to it, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Usually, I found comfort in the stillness of the museum. The quiet gave me time to think, to move without anyone watching. But not this time. This silence wasn't empty. It was crowded. The feeling started just after midnight. I was wiping down the marble floor near the Egypt wing, the part where the glass cases reflect dim overhead lights. That's when I saw it. Not something. Just offness. The reflection of a figure in one of the cases, standing where I wasn't. It looked like a man, tall, stiff, completely still. I turned around, heart racing, but there was no one there. Only air. I checked again. The reflection was gone. Maybe I was tired. Maybe the lights were playing tricks. That's what I told myself. But then I noticed the mop handle. It had red smears on it. Not fresh, not dripping, but dry, crusted in thin lines. I ran my fingers across it without thinking. The texture was wrong. It didn't feel like dried soda or paint. It flaked, dark and brittle, like dried blood. I dropped the mop and stepped back. Okay, just rust, I muttered out loud. Just rust. My voice echoed faintly across the stone walls. I picked the mop back up, trying to ignore the chill creeping down my neck. The rest of the hallway was quiet. Still, I moved faster than usual, eager to finish and move on. But the deeper I went into the museum that night, the more it felt like the building itself was watching. There's this one hallway, long, with statues of forgotten gods lined up on either side. Normally, I just walked past them without paying much attention. But that night, their eyes felt sharper. Focused, like they were turned just slightly more toward me than they had been the night before. I told myself it was all in my head. But then came the dream. Or maybe I didn't fall asleep. I don't remember closing my eyes, just that one moment I was in the Greek exhibit, and the next, I was somewhere else entirely. The hallway was made of mirrors. Endless, warped, and wet-looking like glass left in the rain. Every direction I turned, there were eyes staring back at me. Not mine. Hundreds of them. Some wide, some narrow, all blinking at different times. The floor was black and soft, like soaked velvet. Then came the sound. A low clicking, like fingernails on glass, coming closer and closer. I tried to move, but the floor swallowed my feet. I couldn't scream. I couldn't even speak. Just watch, as one of the mirrors cracked and a hand slid out. Long fingers. Gray skin. Clawed nails. It didn't grab me. It just pointed. Behind me. When I turned, there was a figure standing in the dark. I couldn't see its face, only the outline. Tall, with a mouth that was too wide. It whispered something, but I couldn't hear the words. Only the sound, the dry hiss of something ancient being spoken for the first time in centuries. Then I woke up, or snapped out of it. I was standing in the Greek exhibit again, the mop bucket overturned, water spilling across the floor. I was soaked in sweat, my shirt clinging to my back, breath short and shallow. The clock on the wall said 3:34 a.m. Only 1 minute had passed since I last checked. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe a night cleaner had a dream about being stalked through a mirror maze by something with no face? Maybe I was just tired. But as I finished mopping and gathered my things for the night, I walked past the demon vault one more time. It was quiet, still sealed. But this time, there were fingerprints on the glass panel in the security door. 5 long smudges. On the inside, the night felt colder than usual. Even though the thermostat read a steady 68, the air had a bite to it, like the museum itself was holding its breath. I wrapped my jacket tighter and kept pushing the mop down the marble hallway, trying not to let the growing unease sink too deep. By now, I had memorized every hallway, every shadow. But there was a door I had never noticed before, half hidden behind a dusty vending machine in the staff break room. It was metal, small, with rust curling at the hinges like old vines. No label, no padlock, just a simple keyhole. Curiosity pressed on me like a hand between my shoulder blades. I stared at it for a long time, then reached into my cart. I still had a ring of old keys Eric had given me my first week. Most didn't open anything anymore. Still, I crouched down and began trying them one by one. The 4th key clicked. The door creaked open like it hadn't been touched in years. A wave of stale air rolled out, damp like wet paper and mold. Inside, there was only one light bulb dangling from a wire. I tugged the chain, and a flickering yellow light filled the room. It was a storage closet. At least, that's what it looked like at first. Mops leaned in one corner. Buckets stacked on shelves. But in the back, partially covered by a black tarp, was a small metal locker. Scratches lined its surface like claw marks. Something about it felt personal, like it didn't belong to the museum. I pulled the tarp off. A tag still hung from the handle. Written in faded marker, Jack R. My heart skipped. I had heard that name before, once in passing. Jack Raines, the janitor before me, the one who never came back. I hesitated, then opened the locker. Inside was a mess of old belongings. A dusty thermos, a broken wristwatch, a museum ID badge with Jack's face, tired eyes, half a smile. But what caught my eye was the notebook. Leather-bound, pages yellowed with time. I picked it up. The cover had been scratched so deep it looked like something had tried to tear it apart. But it was still readable. On the inside cover, Jack had written, "If you found this, you're next." The words were shaky, like his hand trembled as he wrote them. I sat down on an overturned bucket and flipped through the first few pages. They were filled with rushed handwriting, almost paranoid. Notes, dates, drawings. One sketch showed the vault door with strange symbols around it. Another page just read over and over. "Don't trust Eric." I froze. Each entry detailed a new night, shadows moving, exhibits rearranging themselves, voices whispering from the vents. Jack mentioned a little girl, appearing by the Sumerian artifacts, calling his name. And then a line that chilled me to my bones. He says she's his daughter. But that thing wearing her face, it's not human. I snapped the book shut and glanced behind me, suddenly sure I wasn't alone. The room was still. Silent. But my breath felt louder than it should have been. There was more in that journal. So much more. I tucked it under my jacket and closed the locker. As I stepped out, I turned to close the door and stopped. Scratched into the inside of the metal were 4 words I hadn't seen before. etched in uneven, angry lines. It never left here. I didn't sleep that day. I lay in bed, the journal on my chest, the words circling in my mind like a chant. If Jack was right, if Eric had lied about the exhibit, then I wasn't just cleaning floors in this place. I was walking a thin line between our world and something darker. And I had already taken the first step in. The storm outside had rolled in without warning, thick clouds swallowing the moonlight, thunder grumbling like a warning from something ancient. Inside the museum, the air felt heavier, as if the storm had seeped into the walls and settled in the shadows. I walked slowly down the east wing, mop in hand, pretending to be focused on cleaning. In truth, my eyes were on the door ahead, the one labeled staff only, curator's office. I had passed it 100 times before without a second thought. But tonight, something gnawed at me. After everything I'd seen, everything I'd heard, I needed answers. And Eric had them. I knocked, hesitated, then slowly pushed the door open. The room smelled of dust, ink, and something faintly metallic. Eric sat at his desk, hunched over a book far older than anything I'd seen on display. His hands trembled slightly as they traced the pages, lips moving in a silent whisper. He didn't look up. "I know something's wrong," I said quietly. He didn't respond. I found the journal. From the cleaner before me. He mentioned something locked away. Something that watches. Eric slowly turned his head toward me. His eyes were bloodshot, ringed with deep purple shadows. "Then you already know too much," he said, his voice dry and distant. "I need the truth." He closed the book gently, as if afraid to wake something inside it. "Truth," he echoed, as if the word meant nothing. "Truth is, my daughter drowned 10 years ago. Right here, in the reflecting pool downstairs." I turned my back for a moment. That's all it takes sometimes. A single moment. A silence fell between us, thick as tar. "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "She was only 7, he continued, eyes far away now. Loved art. Used to sketch the exhibits while I worked. Her favorite was the Babylonian idol. She called it the many-eyed man." He gave a weak laugh, but there was no joy in it. I told her it was just stone. But she said he talked to her. Said he promised to bring her back if she gave him a name. I felt my stomach twist. "I thought it was her imagination," he whispered. "Until I found her sketchbook after the funeral. Every page filled with that same face. Over and over. Eyes drawn in different sizes. Some bleeding. Some smiling. Some watching me." He opened the drawer beside him and pulled out a weathered drawing, its edges burned. It was a child's artwork, but wrong. The figure had too many limbs, too many eyes, and a mouth stretched far too wide. "I tried to forget," Eric said. "Tried to move on. But I kept hearing her. In my sleep. In the halls. And then I found it. The relic. In storage. Unlabeled. Almost as if someone hid it on purpose. It called to me. And I listened. You think the thing in the vault can bring her back?" I asked. He looked at me with something that resembled both hope and horror. "It already has. In dreams. In flickers. She's close. I can feel it. But it needs more. It needs the ritual completed." I took a step back. "You're making a deal with something you don't understand." "Maybe," he said. "But grief doesn't care what you understand. It only cares what you want back." The storm outside cracked loud enough to shake the walls. Lights flickered. Eric leaned forward. "You don't have to believe me, Adam. But soon, you will see her too." He turned back to the book, muttering under his breath again. I left the room quietly, my mind spinning. As I walked through the museum, every creak of wood and whisper of wind felt heavier now. I passed the reflecting pool, the one that hadn't had water in years. But tonight it rippled, and floating in the center was a child's drawing. Wet, fresh, of the many-eyed man. Smiling, watching, waiting. I've always believed night had its own voice. It hums, it breathes, it listens. But lately, the night at Whitmore Museum has been speaking directly to me. It started with the flicker of the hallway lights. A soft, sickly buzz as if the electricity itself didn't want to stay. Then came the sound of footsteps. Not mine, not anyone's I could see. Just steps. Slow, careful, echoing in the marble corridors when I stood perfectly still. But the strangest part? Every night, exactly at 3:33 a.m., something would happen. The first time I brushed it off. I'd been mopping the east wing, near the taxidermy animals. I felt a breeze on the back of my neck. Strange, because the museum is sealed airtight after closing. Then I heard it. A creak. Low and drawn out. I turned and saw the door to the demon vault shift open a crack. I should have called someone, but I didn't. Instead, I crept closer. My heart thumped like a drum in my chest. The hallway seemed longer than it had earlier. My mop water sloshed in the bucket, the echo of the wheels bouncing off every wall. When I reached the vault door, it was still. Closed again. Locked. I swear it had opened. The next night, same time, 3:33. I was in the Egyptian exhibit, dusting off the old glass when I saw something move in the reflection. A tall shadow behind me. But when I spun around, the room was empty. The statues stood frozen, mouths slightly open as if mid-scream. And then, I blinked. The figure of a man in a long black coat stood at the far end of the room. Not moving, just staring. My breath caught in my throat. I stepped back, heart racing, and knocked into a display case. Glass rattled. I turned again. He was gone. Not walked away. Not faded. Gone. The security footage later showed nothing. No figure. No me knocking over the case. Just me standing there, staring at empty space with wide, panicked eyes. It kept happening. Every night. Same time. 3:33 a.m. I tried avoiding it. I'd sit in the break room, lock the door, and stare at the clock. But somehow, I don't know how, I'd wake up somewhere else. One time in the janitor's closet, curled on the floor. Another time, I was inside the children's fossil room, standing in the dark, barefoot. I don't even remember taking my shoes off. But last night was the worst. I remember looking at my watch. 3:32. I told myself I'd stay awake this time. I drank black coffee, even slapped my face to keep alert. Then the temperature dropped. My skin prickled as I turned off my vacuum and listened. Nothing. Not silence, no. Something worse. A hum. Deep. Low. Like chanting underwater. Then pain. A sharp jolt shot through my lower back. I screamed, reaching behind me. My shirt was damp. I thought maybe I'd hurt myself. When I pulled my hand back, it was covered in blood. I ran to the staff bathroom, tore off my shirt, twisted around in the mirror. And there it was. A symbol. Carved into my skin. Not drawn. Carved. It looked ancient, twisted. Like a spiral with thorns. I staggered back. And then I heard them. Footsteps. Rushing toward the door. I turned, expecting someone, anyone, to burst through. Instead, the door slowly creaked open. No one was there. Only cold air. And something else. Whispers. Dozens of them. Some angry. Some sad. Some pleading. I stepped out, every hair on my arm standing. The hallway was dark, darker than I'd ever seen it. I heard the voice again. A woman this time. Very close. Don't let him finish it. Don't let him open the gate. Then silence. And the clock struck 3:34. Everything stopped. The light returned. The hallway brightened. The warmth seeped back into the air. It was like nothing had ever happened. But I knew it had. The blood on my hands. The symbol on my back. It was real. Something wants me. Or maybe something already has me. And whatever happens at 3:33 a.m. isn't over. It's just beginning. I've walked these halls 1,000 times, but that night, something felt different. It was well past midnight, and the museum was dead silent, more than usual. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. I stood outside the vault door, heart racing for reasons I couldn't explain. My keys jingled in my hand as I searched for the right one. It wasn't marked, and I had never used it before. But tonight, I knew exactly which key would fit. It was as if the door had been waiting for me. The vault hissed open, releasing a stale breath of cold air. I stepped inside. The air was heavier, like the room itself had been buried for centuries. The lighting was dim, barely enough to make out shapes. Long, stone walls stretched into darkness, lined with ancient artifacts that weren't part of any museum catalog. Bones. Carvings. Dried flowers blackened with time. At the center was the main piece, what they called the demon exhibit. It was taller than I imagined. A stone altar, old and cracked, sat in the middle. Carved into its surface was a figure, something with too many eyes and no mouth, or maybe too many mouths and no eyes. I couldn't tell. The longer I looked, the more the image seemed to change. Move. Breathe. I walked closer, and that's when I saw the mural. It covered the entire wall behind the altar. It showed a human figure, kneeling, with a shadowy thing towering behind him, its arms long, its head bent low, whispering into the man's ear. The man was smiling, even as blood ran from his eyes. Below the mural were symbols, the same ones from the janitor's journal I found. I didn't understand their meaning, but they burned into my brain like hot wire. Then I heard it. A voice. Low. Gravelly. It came from the speakers above, but the museum's intercom had been dead for weeks. I hadn't told anyone that. It said just one word. Welcome. I spun around. No one. Just the echo of my own breath. My flashlight flickered, and for a second, the mural looked different. The man in the painting now had my face. I blinked. It was gone. I turned back to the altar, and something new had appeared, something that wasn't there when I walked in. A doll. Small, old, and soaked in something dark. Its hair was real. Human, maybe. Teeth were stitched into its fabric. My stomach turned. That's when I heard chanting. It came from deeper in the vault, past the public section, beyond a black curtain I had never seen before. The chanting was soft at first, barely a whisper. But as I pulled the curtain back, it grew louder. Faster. More desperate. I stepped into a room lit only by candlelight. Eric was there. He stood with his back to me, shirtless, arms raised, chanting words that hurt to hear. The language was thick and old, heavy on the tongue. Around him on the floor were objects, a child's shoe, dried roses, a burned photo of a little girl I recognized from a frame in his office. His daughter. Eric turned slowly, his face hollow and pale, eyes wide as if he'd been crying for days. His lips trembled, but he didn't speak. Not to me. I told her I would bring her back, he finally whispered. She answers me now, not you. Behind him, the wall moved. No, not the wall. A shadow. A shape pulling itself free from the stone, unfolding like a broken wing. It was enormous, but had no form. Eyes opened one by one along its length, staring into me through me. My legs locked in place. Then the shadow spoke, not in words, but in thoughts. Cold, sharp thoughts that weren't mine. You were chosen, Adam. You are the gate. Eric fell to his knees, hands bloody, sobbing like a child. I wanted to run, scream, do anything, but I couldn't. My body wasn't mine anymore. The air around me was thick with something old, older than anything in that museum. I could feel it reaching inside me. My flashlight hit the ground with a clatter, and in that pitch darkness, I felt warm breath on my neck. Not human breath. It smelled of earth, rot, and fire. That's when I realized the vault wasn't a room. It was a mouth, and it had just opened. I don't remember falling asleep. One moment, I was pacing my small apartment, flipping through the old janitor's journal again, my fingers trembling as they traced the strange symbols on the pages. The next, I was underwater, dark, cold, suffocating. I couldn't move. My arms were pinned, and something heavy was pressing against my chest. At first, I thought it was a dream. But dreams don't drag you down like that. Dreams don't whisper in your ear with voices that sound like broken bones grinding together. You still grieve. That voice. That cursed voice again. It filled my skull like smoke, thick and bitter. I tried to scream, but my mouth filled with water. Then came the flash. A memory. My sister. Her name was Layla. She was 7. We were at the lake behind our childhood home. I was supposed to watch her. I told her not to go too deep, but I got distracted. She wandered out farther than she should have. I remember hearing the splash. Then silence. Only silence. By the time I got to her, she was floating face down. I never told anyone the full story. I let people believe it was an accident, some cruel trick of fate. But it wasn't. It was my failure. I saw her drifting out and did nothing. I woke up gasping. My back ached as if I'd been sleeping on broken glass. My bed was soaked, not just with sweat, but water. Real water. My sheets, my hair, my skin all damp. My hands trembled as I touched my spine. There was something there. I rushed into the bathroom and turned my back to the mirror. My skin was marked, no carved. A symbol. One of the ones from the journal. Not drawn. Not inked. Carved deep, like it had been etched into me while I slept. My breath caught in my throat. The skin around it was black and red, almost pulsing like it was alive. I threw up in the sink. After that, I didn't go back to bed. I couldn't. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the clock as it crept past 3 a.m., then 3:33, waiting for something, anything, to happen. But the silence was worse than noise. Later that morning, I walked back to the museum. I didn't even change my clothes. I just needed answers. I needed to see it again, the vault. The journal said something about the binding, a ritual that links the soul to the vessel. I didn't know what it meant, not really. But I had a feeling I was becoming the vessel. The museum was quiet, too quiet. Even the usual hum of the AC was gone. I used my keycard to enter. The halls felt longer, narrower, like the building was shifting. The lights flickered. Shadows clung to the corners like cobwebs, but heavier. I walked slowly, every step echoing too loud, too alone. As I reached the bottom of the stairwell near the vault, I saw something scratched into the wall. A single word. Trade. I backed away. My breathing quickened. I ran my fingers over the letters, and my vision blurred. Another memory hit me. Layla again, but this time, I was standing over her grave. Only, she was watching me from inside the coffin. Eyes wide open. Smiling. I screamed. I don't even remember running back out. I just remember the cold night air hitting my face, and me falling to my knees outside the museum, gasping for breath. Whatever was inside the demon vault, it knew about Layla. It knew about me. This wasn't just about demons or rituals anymore. It was personal. The binding wasn't just between Eric and the demon. It was dragging me into it, chaining itself to the part of me I hated most. My guilt. My past. My grief. That night, I sat on my couch with the journal in one hand and the mirror in the other. The symbol on my back pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. And in the mirror, I saw something move behind me, a tall, twisted shape with long arms and no face. It didn't touch me. It didn't speak. It just watched. And I knew then, the demon wasn't just haunting the museum anymore. It had found its way into me. I had to go back. I knew at the moment I found the demon's centerpiece missing from the exhibit, the obsidian idol with the many eyes carved into its face. The one that was supposed to be sealed under layers of glass, behind warning signs in ancient languages. It was gone, and I knew who had it. Eric. I raced down the West Wing corridor, my footsteps echoing too loudly against the cold marble floors. The museum should have been dead silent at this hour, but it wasn't. Low chants echoed from the vault level. Faint, like 1,000 voices whispering underwater. The closer I got, the more my stomach turned. The air smelled different, thicker, warmer, like rotten old blood. When I reached the stairwell leading to the underground vault, the lights above me flickered and went out. I had no choice but to continue in the dark. My flashlight was dying, the beam weak and trembling, but it was better than nothing. Each step down felt like entering a different world. The walls here weren't smooth like the rest of the museum. They were older, rough stone, as if the basement had been built into something ancient. Carvings ran along the edges. They weren't part of the original structure. I recognized some of them from the janitor's journal. Symbols for sacrifice. Openings. Gateways. My hand shook as I reached the final door. The vault was open. Not unlocked, open. Wide like it had been waiting. Inside, it was almost pitch black, except for a circle of firelight at the center of the room. Candles burned in a perfect ring, surrounding Eric, who stood barefoot, his arms raised, his eyes rolled back. He was covered in soot and what looked like dried blood. In front of him sat the idol, now glowing faintly, as if lit from within. Eric was chanting. The words didn't sound human. I stepped inside. My boots crunched on something. I looked down and saw teeth scattered across the floor. Real teeth. Some small. Some rotten. Some looked like they had just been pulled. Eric, I said, my voice hoarse. You need to stop. He didn't look at me. His voice grew louder. She's almost here, he whispered, not to me but to the idol. She's almost home. I stepped closer, past the first line of candles. The air shimmered. My vision blurred. I saw a hallway that wasn't there, stretching deep into the floor, filled with shadows that crawled like insects. She's not your daughter, I said. You know that. He turned finally. His face was wet with tears, but his mouth was smiling. She is. She speaks to me every night now. I just have to open the rest of the way. And then he plunged a knife into his palm and let the blood fall onto the idol. The entire room trembled. A scream, not Eric's, not mine, ripped through the air, coming from everywhere at once. The candles flared. The shadows in the corners began to take shape, long limbs, jointed the wrong way, faces twisted in agony. I couldn't move. Something unseen was holding me in place, forcing me to watch. Eric was lifted off the ground. His body twisted unnaturally, like something inside him was trying to get out. His mouth opened wider than it should have, unhinged, and from it came a sound I'll never forget. The laugh of a child, layered over a deep, guttural roar. No, I said. Stop this. Please. But it was too late. The idol burst into flames without burning. From its center, black smoke poured upward, forming a figure. Not fully there, just eyes at first. Dozens of them, blinking in and out of existence. Then fingers. Then teeth. Eric screamed as the smoke wrapped around him, pulling him into the air. He looked at me then, not with madness, but with regret. I just wanted her back, he whispered. The thing pulled him into itself. His body vanished. All that remained was his voice, echoing long after his body was gone. And then it turned to me. The demon. The thing from the vault. It looked at me with eyes I couldn't count. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. I felt it inside my thoughts, digging, pulling memories from me like roots from dry soil. It showed me my sister. The night she died. My mistake. The look in her eyes before the water swallowed her. It showed me what would happen if I gave in, if I knelt before the idol and whispered her name. I wanted to. God help me, I wanted to. But I didn't. I ran. The vault groaned and shook as I stumbled out, smoke chasing me down the corridor like a living thing. The museum screamed behind me. Every light shattered. Every artifact fell. The fire alarms never went off. The doors never opened on their own. When I reached the top of the stairs, the vault door slammed shut behind me. The silence returned. But the museum was no longer just a museum. It was awake. The air was thick, like I was breathing through wet cloth. Every step deeper into the vault felt heavier, like the floor itself was trying to pull me down. The stone walls bled a strange, black liquid that smelled like rust and burnt hair. The lights above flickered violently, casting quick, jerking shadows that moved just a bit too long after I did. I didn't call out for Eric. I knew where he'd be. At the far end of the vault was the altar. It wasn't just stone anymore. It pulsed, breathed. A mass of flesh and roots, and something that looked like bone had grown from its base, wrapping the floor in patterns I recognized from the janitor's journal. And there he was. Eric stood over it, his arms stretched wide, soaked in sweat, blood, and whatever oily substance the altar leaked. He was shaking, muttering words that no human tongue should say. The air buzzed with every syllable, like static filling my ears. "She's almost here," he whispered without turning around. "My Anna. She just needs one more thing." His voice cracked. I could barely recognize it. "Eric, this isn't your daughter," I said. My voice echoed, like I was shouting down a long tunnel. "Whatever that thing is, it's using you." He finally looked at me. His eyes, one of them was completely black. The other had a ring of fire in it. "You don't know what it's like," he said, voice trembling. "To bury a child, to live every day with that silence." He stepped toward me, holding something in his hands. A small, dried heart wrapped in strands of blonde hair. "I can bring her back, Adam. But I need you." I shook my head. "Why me?" He smiled, and it chilled my blood. "Because the demon chose you too. The grief in you, it's like a beacon. You left your sister to drown, didn't you?" I froze. "You knew she was scared of water," he continued. "But you turned your back for just a minute. You thought she'd be fine." I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to punch him until he shut up. But I couldn't move. The guilt surged through me like a knife twisting in my chest. "She was 5, Eric whispered. "And you never forgave yourself. That's why you're perfect." The altar began to glow with a deep, red light. The shadows around us started to crawl up the walls like insects. I could hear whispers, not just one voice, but many. Laughing, mocking, calling my name. "Join me, Adam," Eric begged. "We can bring them back. Anna, your sister. Don't you want to see her again?" For a moment, I did. For a heartbeat, I saw her face, soaked cold, staring up at me from the water. I saw her little hand reaching out before the surface swallowed her whole. I dropped to my knees. The voices grew louder. But then, I remembered something. Her laugh. The way she used to wait for me after school. How she'd sing off-key on purpose just to make me laugh. She wouldn't want this. She would hate what I'd become. I looked down and saw the relic. A carved obsidian piece shaped like an eye, pulsing like it had a heartbeat. I reached for it. Eric screamed. "No! You'll ruin everything." He lunged at me. But I grabbed the relic first. The moment my fingers closed around it, the vault exploded with light and sound. A wind howled from nowhere, lifting Eric off his feet and slamming him against the far wall. His body twisted unnaturally, bones snapping like dry branches. The shadows shrieked. And the voice, the demon's voice, cut through it all, loud and deep like thunder cracking the sky. "You refuse your offering?" I stood, holding the relic, blood pouring from my nose. "I'm not your vessel," I said. "I'm not your key." I smashed the relic against the altar. The sound was deafening. A flash of red light blinded me. The ground shook. The walls cracked and groaned. I heard the demon scream, not just in rage but in fear. The kind of scream that made your soul want to leave your body. Everything turned black. I don't remember hitting the ground. Just the sound of fire. And Eric's last words before everything faded. She was almost here. Then silence. Heavy. Complete. Silence. And in that darkness, I whispered to the void, to whatever still lingered. You can't have me. Not anymore. The museum burned behind me. Not with flames, but with silence. A silence that stung like smoke in my lungs, thick with the weight of everything I had seen, everything I had done. I stood in the parking lot, my uniform soaked with sweat and something darker. The early morning sky was still black, just before dawn. But the building behind me looked dead. Not just empty, dead. I must have stood there for an hour, watching the red exit sign above the main doors flicker like a dying pulse. My legs felt like they didn't belong to me anymore. My mind couldn't decide if it wanted to collapse or scream. I just stared at the glass doors, half expecting them to burst open again. For Eric to come running out, eyes gone, skin steaming. Or for the demon to drag me back inside. But nothing came. Eventually, blue and red lights flashed at the edge of my vision. Sirens howled. A police car, then another. Then the fire truck, though there wasn't really a fire. Just a shaking building. Just me broken and shaking too. They asked me what happened. I told them what I could without sounding insane. There was an accident, I said. A gas leak maybe. Something collapsed in the vault. I don't know. I just ran. They took my statement like it was enough. But I could see it in their eyes. They didn't believe a word of it. Who would? A few officers went in to check. They came back 10 minutes later, confused and pale. There's nothing in there, one of them said, shaking his head. No damage. No signs of any fire. Just dust. And ashes. Ashes. I didn't ask what they meant. I didn't want to know. They found no sign of Eric. Not even his clothes. No evidence of a ritual, no blood, no demonic symbols. The vault was sealed shut, the keyhole crusted with rust like it hadn't been opened in years. The exhibit centerpiece? Gone. Not stolen. Just missing. As if it never existed. They searched for days. Eric's name was entered into a missing persons file. I was given a few days off work, though I never went back. Instead, I moved across the city. Took a job cleaning a small, private museum in the old part of town. Nothing fancy. Just antique dolls, train sets, and a few war relics. It's quiet here. The kind of quiet that doesn't breathe down your neck. For a while I slept fine. I convinced myself it was over. That the thing in the vault had been destroyed. That maybe, just maybe, Eric's soul was finally at peace, or completely gone. I didn't know which was worse. But last night, everything changed again. I was cleaning the back storage room, organizing boxes labeled uncatalogued. Most were filled with junk, old maps, broken pottery, handwritten labels so faded they might as well be blank. Then I opened one box near the back of the room. It was wrapped in old cloth, tied tight with black string. Inside was a stone, smooth and cold, carved with a symbol I'd seen before. The same one Eric had drawn in blood. The same one burned into my dreams. As soon as I touched it, the scar on my back, the one I got in the vault, started to itch. Not just a little. It burned like something was waking up. And then I heard it. A whisper. It didn't come from behind me, or above me, or anywhere I could point to. It came from inside the room. From the air itself. You opened the door. I dropped the stone. Backed away. Slammed the box shut. But I couldn't unhear it. That voice, smooth, low, echoing like it came from a mouth filled with teeth. It didn't sound angry. No. It sounded amused. I haven't slept since. I've locked the box away in the supply closet, behind buckets and mops. But I know that's not enough. I know better now. Some doors you don't open. Others open for you. And some were never closed to begin with. I thought I had left it behind. After everything that happened, after the vault, the fire, and Eric's disappearance, I swore I'd never set foot in another museum again. But life has a cruel sense of humor, and bills don't stop piling up just because you've been haunted. So here I am again. Different town, different museum. Smaller. Quieter. Less history. Or so I thought. The job is simple. Clean at night. No tourists, no staff. Just me, the mops, and the silence. I used to love the quiet. Now it presses on me like a weight I can't shake. It had been 3 months since I started. The nightmares had almost stopped. I was even starting to believe maybe, just maybe, it had all ended back there in Whitmore. That the museum's walls had burned away all the evil. That the vault was truly sealed forever. I was wrong. It started 2 nights ago. At exactly 3:33 a.m. I was dusting an old wooden crate that had just arrived in the basement archives. No labels. No record of shipment. Just a note taped to the top in fading ink. Unknown origin. Do not open. I stared at it longer than I should have. There was something about the handwriting. Sharp. Uneven. Like it had been written in a hurry. Or with a trembling hand. The box was cold. Even in that warm, stuffy storage room. I didn't touch it the first night. But last night I gave in. I shouldn't have. The wood groaned when I slid the lid off, like it had been holding its breath for centuries. Inside was a small, black object wrapped in cloth. My hands moved on their own. The cloth unraveled like it wanted to be freed. It was a mask, carved from obsidian, smooth and heavy, with hollow eyes and no mouth. But what struck me most was the symbol carved into the forehead. A spiral. The same spiral I had seen scorched into the walls of the demon vault. My heart dropped. I stepped back, the room spinning. I looked at the mask, then at my hands. The scar was back. The one on my palm, the one that had faded after I destroyed the relic, was pulsing again. Red. Angry. As if something inside me had been reawakened. That's when I heard it. A whisper. From behind me. You opened it again. I turned fast. No one. Just rows of dusty shelves and forgotten artifacts. But I wasn't alone. I could feel it, the same thick, rotten presence I thought I'd escaped. It followed me home. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the mask. And behind it, eyes. Dozens. Staring. Waiting. Tonight, I came back to the crate. I told myself I needed to report it. Log it into the system. Lock it up. But when I reached the basement, the crate was gone. Only the mask remained. Sitting on the table. Facing me. I didn't remember placing it there. I didn't remember even touching it again. And then I heard it, louder this time. Not in the room, but inside my head. You were never meant to leave. I backed away slowly. My hands trembled. My breath turned cold. Then the lights flickered, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, I saw a shadow standing behind the mask. Tall. Bent. With too many arms. The same shape I had seen crawling from the vault before it collapsed. I ran. I didn't look back. But here's the truth. I know it won't matter. Because I've seen the signs before. The voices. The dreams. The mark. The timing. Whatever was in that vault wasn't destroyed. It was released. And now it remembers me. This time, there's no Eric to stop it. No ritual to undo. Only me. And a truth I can no longer deny. Some vaults don't hold things in. They wait for you to come back. And I did. God help me, I did.